If you are just joining us, the program is This Morning on ITV, and this is the Abuja Network Center. I am Charity Tanko. The discussion here will continue with the return of Fubara, Governor Fubara of Rivers State. That is after the 6 months of state of emergency imposed on Rivers State by President Bola Tinubu on 18 March 2025. Reasons cited for this state of emergency include political rivalry between the Governor Fubara, and the former Governor of Rivers State, who is currently the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike. There were also breakdown of economic assets. There was also a divided House of Assembly, which led President Bola Tinubu to invoke Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and made former Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas the sole administrator of Rivers State. So since March 18, 2025 until yesterday, Rivers State has been under a sole administrator. Today, the governor, democratically elected governor, Sim Fubara, is returning fully as governor of the state with the members of the State of House of Assembly. How is this going to augur for the governor and the people of the Rivers State? Is this democracy in progress, or this democracy is retrogressive? We are going to be analyzing this issue, this particular subject matter, with no other person than Comrade Peter Ame, who is the former chairman of Interparty Advisory Council. He is joining us via Zoom. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Good to have you, sir. So, sir, I would like to go this way. How did the announcement of the suspension of the state of emergency hit you yesterday from the presidency?
For me, first of all, it was not supposed to have happened, because Section 305 was meant to curb security challenges, very heightened ones, like what is happening in Zamfara, when bandits are declaring freeing hostages openly with in collaboration with government officials. This is what Section 305 is supposed to be able to curb. It's not to undermine our democracy. It's not to, turn the president to a proclaimer general of the federation that is strengthening the basic balance of a federating system. So what we have as of that that declaration is not development. The progress we have made since 1999. They need to, continue to make sure that democracy and the rule of law triumph over, totalitarianism and the oppression of the people. What the president did is to use maximum state power to undermine the constitution of our country. And for me, I feel really bad, especially the complicit nature of the judiciary, where they ignored the decision and the court matter brought before it by the PDP governors, by refusing to not talk about the issue throughout the 161 days that the matter was brought before them, because they have been able to further work in collaboration, to make sure that the rule of law is not as respected as it should be, and then putting political interest ahead of judicial proclamations. So it is dangerous precedent being set for our democracy, because we could have a worse president than this one, who will believe in the use of state power to undermine democracy. What has happened is, like, the president undermined the federating unit of each country by taking that the federal system, that we have federating unit, that the state as an autonomous authority to manage its affairs and control the internal issues, to suspend a validly elected governor that is declared by law to have been elected to represent and look after the affairs of Rivers State, and then also suspended the duly constituted state assembly, without any authority to do that, because this is an aberration. This is an affront to our democracy, because what we're saying is that the constitution clearly states that the governor will be elected for a 4-year term. That's why it has stated in the Constitution at Section 185 of Section 2. So you cannot now wake up that this 6 months, who is going to be able to now give it to the governor? Nobody's going to give it back to him. We're not even talking about Fubara. We're talking about institutionalization of processes and making sure that our institutions are dependable no matter under the force of whatever authority the president has. We make sure that our democracy does not come under the weight of state power to be undermined, because that 6 months has been removed. That means you have undermined the constitution by not giving him that 4 years to look at the affairs of the state. So we cannot continue to allow our voices to be drowned in this wilderness of mismanagement of power, misapplication of authority, which will go further erode the gains that were made when it comes to democratic projection. Because our development, the rule of law, is very cardinal. What differentiates democracy from military regime, from military dictatorship, is the rule of law. In the absence of the rule of law, then you'd have no democracy. So the rule of law is very important, and it's very important to be able to allow the rule of law to prevail in the affairs of our institution, in the management of our public authority, and in the weighing of our powers. Because we cannot continue to just sit down, allow the president to do what he has done, and then declaring that as a proclaimer general, declaring that the governor cannot resume. An elected president now telling an elected governor to go and resume duties. So we take a lot of things in this country, and that is why you find out that people who are in government become stronger and stronger, and continue to undermine our collective interest and participation within our democratic governance system. You can't have a government that you will wake up and then you declare every institution of democracy to go to sleep, and then you wake up 6 months after and then you say they should resume duties as if there's a class captain and a principal retro activities. So a lot of people spoke out, but because our democracy decided to take the part of the executive, decided to be complicit in this process, because our judiciary stayed away from interpreting the law to be able to save our democracy, to be able to, reduce the overbearing authority of the president as in the affairs of each federative state. Our judiciary have further proven to what people are saying, that our judiciary is within the whims and caprices of the executive, because there's nowhere in the world for 162 days that the judiciary will just ignore a case that has been brought before it, because the judiciary knows that the decision that the president have taken is bad for the development of our democratic system. And we have said this thousands of times. People are talking about it. There's nowhere in the world you expect investors to come to your country when they feel that the judiciary is compromised. Nobody will come. Because when you have a case, multinational corporation cases within the judiciary, they feel that there will be unfair interference by those in the executive. So we must be able to separate the power of the president, what the president can do and what the president cannot do. And the president cannot depend on federal might to make sure that states start to surrender to his wishes and caprices.
Comrade, okay, you said the state went to sleep, but there was a sole administrator who also came to the National Assembly and submitted a budget. Can we call that sleeping?
That is sleeping, because that budget is not supposed to be submitted. Yes, in a state of emergency. When there's such emergency, the National Assembly, not even the Senate, the House of Representatives, is supposed to be able to take over the function of the state House of Assembly, not the executive power. There's no such provision anywhere. There's no such provision anywhere that the state can remove the function of the executive governor of the state can be overridden by the authority of the president. There's no such provision, because they are both elected, and they are both as chief executive of at the federal or the federative unit level. So what the Senate is doing, the Senate is also part of this decay that we have found in our democratic system, because what the Senate is doing, just like people have said that they are spineless and they are and they have become rubber stamp in the affairs of our country. It is so annoying, because Section 308 clearly states, even before the declaration of that state of emergency, the president is supposed to have taken the proposal to the Senate, to the National Assembly, to see if the National Assembly will vote, not the voice vote that they carry out and that they are, shenanigans that they display on the day of that voting. Whether the president there's enough reason for the president to declare state of emergency. What happened was that the president had already remove the governor, suspended the governor and the state as of assembly before even going to the National Assembly for any deliberation or discussion. So you can't put the cart before the horse. What we are saying is that whatever application that has been done in that state was not done under fair grounds, because spending by our laws must go through appropriation, must go through certain levels, certain layers of budgeting, and appropriation act eventually comes out of it. What we have in that state during this period of 6 months is an arbitrary spending and arbitrary management of public resources, misaligned for the benefit of those who want to take control of the state, those who have now benefited from running the local government order and undemocratically put in place government. A local government election was conducted. A state independent electoral commission was constituted, and these all were done in flagrant disobedience to the rule of law and to the constitutional provisions of our country. So you cannot now have that Ibas, who is a temporary sitting governor by force measure, to now be in office and then conduct all these ones, and then eventually, where you will see that this decision was done to be based on political benefit and political reason, to be able to undermine the interest of one party against another party. Because multi-party democracy is the beauty of our democratic culture, especially as is enshrined in section 201 to 210. Because multi-party democracy gives reason for multiplicity of political engagement, for people to be involved in the process of participating in our democracy from all fronts where their interest is protected as stated in the Constitution. So if you now have a situation where they now conduct a local government election, a state that was won by the PDP in full control, and then you find out that the local government election, that 20 out of it went to the APC. So you will see that this was the plot from ab initio to be able to capture the local government for the interest of the APC. So we cannot have a democracy where people will use strong arm of those in power to undermine our processes.
Comrade, we're going on a commercial break, and when we return, we will continue this conversation. We're still discussing the return of Fubara as the democratically elected governor of Rivers State, and I still have my guest via Zoom, Comrade Peter Ami, who is analyzing this issue. Comrade, I would like to ask this question. We are really battling with time. Since the announcement yesterday by President Bola Tinubu that the state of emergency has been suspended and Fubara and the State House of Assembly are supposed to resuming office fully today, the social media space and everywhere has been buzzing with questions. Some of the questions people are asking is that, would the governor be able to perform optimally as he should? And some are even speculating that for him to have been allowed to return as the governor, that he would have signed something that would make him just be like a figurehead in Rivers State. Do you share in that school of thought?
Yeah, allegedly, we have been hearing a lot of stuff that those who actually instigated this suspension from office are also requesting that you have the position of the chief of staff, the SSG. So the governor will be a puppet in office that cannot deliver for the River State people. And for me, the governor already surrendered to federal might, because when you say federal might, we don't have a democracy that is balanced. It's not balanced like in the United States, where the state and the federation, they control the National Guard, where the president control the armed forces and the rest of them. What we have is an imbalanced system where the president have the control of the apparatus of security agencies like the police, the army, and which can even take a person out of the office arbitrarily without following due process. So that led to the surrendering of his mandate given to him by the people. As we go along, we will see whether this is a fleeting missteps by the president, or that it was a deliberate attempt to further erode the gains we've made since 1999. For me, I believe that the president, the governor, is going to just be a rubber stamp. He's going to be there like a ceremonial governor, signing checks, approving money that will be directed behind the closed door, without having that will that he had in trying to pursue a populist government and egalitarian, build up towards an egalitarian society within Rivers State. So I don't believe you have that level of freedom, that level of courage, because that has been taken away from him. That is now a ghost of to be a ghost of his former self, and he will operate within the authority and and the whims of those who now have the federal might to undermine his continuous stay in office, because this is about 2027. This is not about the people of Rivers State. This is not about the people of Nigeria. This is a very dangerous misstep that if we don't correct it, and my most profound disappointment actually go to the Supreme Court justices who have further, taken that step to support the affairs of the executive by doing what they call non-alignment, by not taking a decisive decision on this case brought before them, so that we would have known where the power of the president lies and where the president should have been called to order, so that we don't further have one day person into office who will come and also suspend the judiciary. So we need to be able to do everything humanly possible to make sure that the rule of law is the beacon, is the cornerstone of our democratic engagement, of our democratic participation, all of our democratic discussion. Because without the rule of law, what we have will be anarchy. What we will have will be the whims of the people who are in power to use whatever they have in power to undermine the interests of the collective and of the general public for their own personal benefit. So it is critical. We know that this decision that the president have taken, if you go to the public and you do what they call voice popularly, you will discover that everybody does not see it as a well thought out decision. People see it as a politically motivated decision to take to give advantage to two people who were fighting. In a democracy, contestation of ideas is not a crime. For struggle for power is part of what democracy brings, so that people can have opportunity to participate freely, change their views, contest for authority, and then whoever wins through the instrument of law will now be able to enjoy the benefit of participating in the process. But whoever has the authority to now undermine one person to the benefit of the other will now be able to now break down and weaken our democratic system for the benefit of his own selfish interest, which is what has happened in Rivers State. So we shouldn't continue to condone such a thing. We are not doing this discussion. We are not participating in this discussion because we want something to favor anybody. What we are saying is that without the rule of law, what do we have? Anarchy. Is that without the rule of law, what do we have? The aspiration by those in power to continue to enrich themselves and to continue to use the power for the benefit of their families and their cronies. So that is where our interest lies. Our interest is that the rule of law should take precedence, not the will of man, not the will of those in power, not the authority of those in power. Because the authority they enjoy is also under the Constitution. So we should not continue to progress in error by allowing those in power to undermine the 1999 Constitution, no matter how flawed that Constitution is. You see the Constitution and the cardinal legal norms that we use to manage the affairs of this country. So for me and for a lot of others that we have seen, you know that this decision of the president was one-sided, was driven towards personal agenda, was driven towards the interest of his party, which clearly became after the outcome of the local government election, where the APC won 20. I don't believe in local government elections in this country. I've said it with countless times. That is the greatest electoral fraud foisted on our democratic governance in our country. The state CX are very corrupt. The state CX are under the whips and control of those appointing authority in the state. They are even worse than INEC. So I don't believe in them, but I also do not believe that an unelected person who was not elected to represent the Rivers State interest, who was not given a mandate to take decisions on behalf of the Rivers State, should be appointed and removing the elected government. I don't believe this was right, and I condemn it. All Nigerians should support that we do not allow this to happen again.
Thank you very much, comrade. It's always a delight talking to you. You always have so much to say, and thank you. And I believe that Nigerians must have learned one or two from what you have just shared. Well, we've been discussing with the former chairman IPAC on the return of Fubara to Rivers State Government House. It is a new dawn in Rivers State as we speak now. Whether it's going to be business as usual, whether Fubara is going to take decisive steps to ensure that he governs the state as somebody who is democratically elected. That stands to be seen. Nigerians are watching, Nigerians are waiting. It's been TMI from the Abuja Network Center, and I am Charity Tanko. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we will hook you up with our Lagos studio.